And then you talk about RPA. Harrison, I hate RPA. Honestly, I think it's terrible. For people out there, Richard Branson, I think he said, if somebody gives you a big opportunity, take it and then figure it out. I think that's sound advice.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to our podcast, The Edge of Transformation, where we sit down with leaders in the digital transformation, intelligent automation, and AI space and have discussions about the journeys, lessons learned, and plans for all of the movers and shakers who are shaping the industry's future. Today, I'm joined by Andrew Murphy, Head of Strategy and Commercial at Jaam Automation. Listen in. I hope you enjoy. It's a good one, and see you soon. So yeah, I guess just to kind of start off and kick things off from this side, could you tell me a bit about yourself? I know we're going to kind of go into a bit more about sort of what you're doing at the moment, but just a bit around your background, a bit about your past, whether it's like work or home life or just everything, just to give everyone a good chance to know the real you and find out a little bit more about where you've been and where how you got to where you are today, basically.
Yeah, thanks, Harrison. Look, I'll start off with what I think is probably an interesting juncture. When I was about 7, my parents moved from Staines to a little country in South Africa surrounding South Africa called Lesotho. So I grew up in a landlocked country called Lesotho in its capital called Maseru, which was a fascinating upbringing. I got to spend a lot of time outside. I got to go to school with 42 different nationalities,
Wow.
which was just fantastic. I'm old, so back then that sort of thing didn't happen very much. And grow up in a really sort of wonderful, sort of multicultural, international environment. Got an opportunity to travel quite a bit as well, which is nice. I've seen lots of places. So every year, family would come back to the UK via a different country. So I think I've been really lucky in my sort of upbringing.
Yeah.
And it gave me that passion to continue that international flavor to business and that travel flavor to business as well, which I think has really been a benefit to me, which is pretty cool. I then, while I was over there, I wanted to be a professional tennis player. That was my goal.
As you do, yeah.
That was my thing. And I wanted to go and play on the ITF tennis tour in Africa. And my dad said, no worries, you can do that, but I'm not paying for it. I'll get you a job. And he got me a job in a local IT company building computers. And that's really where my first interest in computing began.
Okay.
And so I spent 5 months with a crazy bunch of South Africans in Lesotho building computers and networking offices. So I kind of learned a lot on the job there, really enjoyed it. But then moved over to the UK and I wanted then to become an economist. Go figure.
Bit of a drastic sort of change there.
Mainly because my father was an economist, so I sort of as a natural path.
Yeah.
I enjoyed studying it at school, but studying is probably a very loose term. When I went to boarding school in the UK and I didn't do any. So that put me into a little bit of a conundrum when it came time to pick university.
Yeah.
And so I didn't get the grades for the universities I applied for to go into economics. So I had to make a plan, and back then you had clearing. So I opened up the Times newspaper and looked at all of the courses, and hey, there was computer science. I thought, well, I like computers, that'll be cool. So I rang him up. I had a good chat with the dean at the time. I remember afterwards my father saying to me, hey, you mentioned a lot of programming languages. What's that all about? Do you know those? I said, no, but he asked me what I could code in. So those were the ones I'd heard of. A little bit of a punt, and it got me on the course.
There you go.
And then while I was there, I met my wife. Wasn't my wife at the time, but my wife, and got my computer science degree, and then stepped out into the world of technology-ish. Because by the time I finished computer science, I hated it, and I didn't want to see a computer again. So I went into hospitality and hotel management.
Oh wow!
And after a year of sort of doing night shifts and things, my wife, who's very wise, said to me, hey, you've got this computer science degree thing, go do that. So I pivoted back in and talk about later what happens. So kind of an interesting upbringing. Nowadays, co-founder of Jaam Automation. I'm a very keen cyclist. So about 3 years ago, I picked that up to take over from my racket sport piece. And I'm a technology enthusiast. So I love technology.
Nice. So yeah, I guess technology for you has been since you were really young then, really, when you first got introduced to it, building computers. I guess that was the first sort of flavor. Did you ever think when you started building computers, did you ever think that you were going to be ending up working with technology or computing of some sort? Did you ever hinder that would be a possibility? I know you wanted to be a tennis player at that point, but I don't know if
Yeah,
that
that's right.
crossed your mind.
I think probably loosely, before I went and did my computer science degree, I never believed that I had the aptitude to be a programmer. And so I think that there kind of put me off a bit. I thought, well, actually, I'm probably not going to do that. So, I was looking at other avenues. And then I think it was just a situation I was forced to go make a plan, that I sort of stepped in there and then found out, well, actually, I can do this. I
Yeah.
can do it. So, yeah, I had thought about it, but just didn't believe in myself enough, I think, to push it early before it was forced upon me.
Yeah. And I guess when you went into computer science, did you think by getting a degree in computer science, would you have to come out the other side and be quite hands-on? Would you have to come out and basically, is that just, did you see it as almost one avenue to being like a coder or a developer in that sense? Because what we really see now is people going in doing computer science degrees, but coming out, and there are so many other options now where people can go into different avenues within their career. It's not necessarily you do computer science, you come out, you're either a data scientist or, you're doing code, and you could come out and maybe go into more of a commercial role within a business as well. So I don't know if you ever thought that would just lead you down one route, or did you know that there would be other possibilities?
No, I believe there would be other possibilities. I was always advised by my parents that university was a good life experience to go. So it would
Yeah.
be good if you want to go. That was never forced to. Try and pick something that you're interested in because you're going to study it for X number of years, and then what you do with that afterwards, you make a plan.
Yeah.
So I didn't think it was going to lead me down an avenue. And it's important for if there are people who are listening to the podcast who are either in a gap year at university or sort of coming out of university or thinking whether they go to university. It is just a good life experience. And as an employer, I don't actually worry too much about the degree that you have.
Yeah.
Right? I think it's nice that if you've been to university, I personally I like it, but it's not something that defines whether I'll consider you for the role. Not
No.
really.
No.
So yeah, no, it's just a good opportunity to engage in higher education, learn, and anyone who's been to university, and you can have a reasonably good time along the way.
Yeah, hopefully. I think that's quite a big portion of why people go. And I was talking to someone the other day who was thinking about what university they're doing A levels, and I was trying to speak to them about so what university are you looking at, what courses are you looking at, and they said, well, I'm looking at this and this, but also within my selection criteria, it's all about the nightlife. And what universities have the best like social elements as well, so which wasn't really a consideration when I went to university, but I think now it's yeah, I don't know if that sort of side has increased, but yeah, it's interesting to
Beautiful. I went to Newcastle University. It wasn't for the nightlife, but there is some good nightlife there.
Yeah, I have been out once or twice, and it's yeah, it does get a bit crazy up there. So yeah, but yeah, so thanks for an oversight into sort of your background and sort of where you're at, and sort of how you got to kind of where you are in a way at the moment. I think the next thing that I wanted to find out was really around what has been your journey with digital transformation, with RPA, intelligent automation, AI, those sorts of types of technologies. What's been your experience? And I know some people listening will probably say, well, digital transformation is such a broad term, but I'm leaving that open to interpretation from your side in terms of what you class that as, and your experience with it. So I'm doing that on purpose.
No worries, Harrison. And it is a massively broad term. So I'll focus on, as you said, my experience in it. Digital transformation, basically applying digital technologies to transform something, right? My first real experience of that was when I finished university and I did my hospitality piece and pivoted back into IT. I worked for a company at the time called CompuServe, who were a global provider, basically of connectivity services. They're one of the first people and what they had done is they had in effect modems across the globe, and then they had numbers for each country that you could dial into. So they were really sort of bringing the internet and interconnecting it and making it available for people to go and use. And there was no Google at the time or anything like that. So what they also did is they aggregated content. So you could then dial in from anywhere in the world to CompuServe, and you'd be able to have aggregated content for you that you could read through and use. And then I sat on a call center, helping people figure out why their computer couldn't connect to a modem, and quite often listening to little screeches down the line tried on the phone. But I think that was quite a pivotal point, in getting people to bring their home PCs, connect up, and have content they could go and use. So I didn't realize it at the time, but looking back, quite an exciting piece of digital transformation was right then and there. Then from there, I went and worked in a small a small IT firm that specialized in digitally transforming, and wait for it, Harrison, this is an exciting area, legal and trust systems, right? And in particular, will and trust systems. Again, not very exciting, but it was a lovely team that I worked with. A couple of ex-lawyers who'd set up a practice, a couple of incredibly intelligent developers that were building systems. And what they taught me was, actually, it's really useful if, rather than taking the knowledge out of a business person's head and hard coding it, if you can create something that empowers them to go and put their knowledge into a system that can be used by people, then you can do a lot more. And that's what we did for many years. We put systems together, let legal people go and define all the clauses they want in things, and logic and rules and questions and all that, to then draft you a will or a power of attorney, or something like that. So I was a developer there for a little while, and again, taking all of the paper-based stuff and digitizing it. I then I've been there a while, and I was sort of looking around to see what it was, and I came across a company called K2, who focused on workflow at the time, and then sort of graduated up to business process automation, which is an aspect of digital transformation. So whenever you want to take a manual process, of which even today there are a gazillion of them, and you want to then go and put some automation around that process, you're going to use you're going to use process automation or workflow as part of that. And I worked in that company for quite a while as a delivery person, so going in and teaching people how to use low-code tooling to self-serve, but also wrapping around technical expertise to take that and push it in. I think that's an important point. What I've learned over time, the business needs to be involved and empowered, but quite often what people try and do is cut off IT, right? Or IT want to cut off business. But actually, you've got to work together. You've got to make a plan. You've got to work through all the usual things like time constraints and skill sets and all that sort of stuff. But you can do it these days with low-code tooling. But it doesn't mean low-code and no-code in digital transformation doesn't mean no technologists. Right? It just means writing thousands of lines of code, and it means you can collaborate better. So I've done that, and I've seen a lot of success in there. I've also seen a lot of failures in that as well, because you can give people great tools, but if you run a bad project, or if people don't understand what their business process is anyway, you'll digitize something that's already broken. So that's an important thing to look out for. And then you talk about RPA. Harrison, I hate RPA. Honestly, I think it's terrible. And my team and the people I work with know it. But I do recognize that it has a place, right? So I don't like it, but it does have a place, because quite often in businesses there is, there's actually at the moment, that point in time, there's no other real option, right? There's no integration places to go. There's nobody that can really help you. So a robot can do some really useful things for you. It can go and grab, hundreds of thousands of lines out of Excel spreadsheets and type them into other systems using the user interface they are. So that's pretty useful. But I think my experience of RPA, as we sort of go through the digital transformation journey, was to start with, people didn't know what it was. And there was well, where does it apply? What's it going to do? And a lot of people were trying to apply it to do everything. And it doesn't do everything yet. I know that RPA is a growing space and it's kind of weaving and changing what it does, but it doesn't do everything. You need to combine it with other things to get your digital transformation. And I don't think, in my personal view, I don't think RPA should ever be a long-term solution strategy. I think it's a short to medium-term intermediary step while you make some other plan in its current guise. It's evolving and that might change, but that one of my view today. And actually, one of the founding principles when we set up Jaam Automation was to make sure that companies that want to digitally transform understand what's available, what tech is available for them, and B, that they pick the right tech for that problem. And one of the things that's quite difficult is how do you stitch it all together? So if you've got a low-code process automation tool, you've got an RPA tool, you've got some AI plugged in the mix, you've got some data transformation stuff, you've got some analytics that's sitting there, you've got all of this eventing sitting aside. How do you interconnect all that to solve your business process? And that's kind of one of the things that we really love doing, is taking that tech, bringing the right stuff to bear, and then helping the business define what their problem is and then implementing that at scale. And that can be quite scary, but it can also be quite a lot of fun. And then on an AI side, geez, again, that's another big topic. It's been evolving for a long time. I think what we've seen happening in particular over the last couple of years is we've seen AI become more packaged, right? So more commoditized. So yes, you can still go out and you can analyze large data sets and build yourself machine models and all of that, and that still happens. But actually, a lot of companies and providers have done that for you for common use cases in business. And in our space, which is automation, there are a few areas that actually you can go and plug it in and get benefit really, really quickly. So some of it's pretty boring stuff, but is quite essential, like intelligent document processing. So getting an old school documentation, emails, and then classifying, extracting content, and then giving it to people to go and do work. Having a look at the sentiment of the writing in it in order to tell people whether it's a good story coming, a bad story, and complaint handling. There's some useful stuff in there that you can leverage. And then language translation is actually pretty good these days. It used to be that you didn't want to use translation services because the context would get lost. I always remember back into will and trust thing. If you took the English for if your family dies and directly translated it into Afrikaans at the time, it came out as, "Would you like to cater for family obliteration?" Probably not the way we want to phrase it. So
I don't want to put that into the documents.
But now it's getting pretty good. So you can then take systems that can be presented and translated through to many different people. Conversational AI is obviously a big topic that's around at the moment, and the hot thing now, of course, is generative AI. Right? Which is there, and I do think it's got a good place. We're working out how we can plug it into some of the systems and things that we have in a meaningful and safe way. But I do think that there's some good stuff that can happen along the way, and that bit's just going to grow and grow and grow. However, people mustn't forget the fundamentals. If you put AI on top of messy and poorly managed data and systems, you'll just get AI giving you poorly managed systems. So you need to fix your fundamentals and then everything else sort of around that. I guess a broad answer for a broad question.
Well, it was always, like I said, it's always a broad topic. When you say digital transformation on its own, you could spend however long talking about that, or even just AI on its own and trying to condense them into your sort of experience with it. It's always going to be tough, but I kind of get what you mean around where we're at with AI, people just putting it in, on top of a load of mess and hoping that it's going to fix something.
Yeah.
So like you said with RPA is, it's not the sort of be all and end all. People are just chucking, number of years ago when there was a lot more hype around it, getting RPA will just come in, put some RPA in, and it'll fix everything. But obviously that's not the case. And like you say, we're kind of seeing that with AI now as well, and people talking about other technologies. And I think it's always the same way. And there's, like, you're right, there has to be that education piece around, what does actually the state of your business look like, and do you even need RPA, or is it just process improvement that you need first of all before you kind of go into all that sort of stuff? So yeah, we hear all of those horror stories all the time, people just going in with an RPA hammer, trying to find a nail, and just going in and just doing as much as they can without really thinking about it. So yeah, some of the stuff we hear is quite insane. But yeah, I mean, in terms of right now, I know you've spoken about Jam a little bit. What are the sort of key things that you're focused on right now with Jam, and with what you're doing at Jam yourself, but also with whoever Jam are working with, and the kind of things that you guys are doing as a company as a whole as well?
Yeah. Of course, it's AI, right, Harrison? That's what we're focusing on.
Yeah. Just
We all
AI
want
everywhere.
AI everywhere. Which we are looking at. But on a serious note, what we're doing right now is, we started a couple of years ago. We've been growing by about 50% every 6 months, which is quite nice. We've been delivering a lot of solutions across the 38 customers that we have worked with over that 2-year period. And so we're focusing really on sort of 3 core things. One is taking the IP that we've created in that period and commoditizing it and packaging it so that it's more repeatable for us and for our customers. Focusing into a couple of key verticals, because we've now got some expertise that's sitting there. We still will service the others, but just a little bit more of a focus there. And then excitingly is growing our business, so scaling our business. We've hit a good point now where we're no longer going to grow sort of organically. So we're now looking at that through 2 things. One is through talent acquisition. So there are key roles in the business that we are looking to fill so that some of the founders, myself included, can step away from kind of everything and focus on the growth and the management of the company, and our CTO can step away from doing everything and focus on the technology side of the business. So one of those is key strategic hires, and of course we work with great companies like EdgeTech on that. And then the other is around looking at how do we take it to the next level? What other businesses are out there? How can we partner with them? What might that look like sort of towards the end of this year? Again, to scale that up, because the industry out there, the world is economic times are interesting, I think, as the British would say it. But I've long been a believer, and I listened to a podcast by Elon Musk many moons ago when he was just setting up Tesla, and I recall him saying, if you're able to invest when times are hard, then you can capitalize on that when things start to improve. So I believe that we've done that over the last sort of couple of years through COVID, etc. We'll continue to do that, and automation is a hot space, and so we're quite excited on what we're doing.
Yeah. Well, I think you're right. If you've gone through, you've gone through COVID, you've gone through a global pandemic, and sort of even where we are now, like you say, the British would say interesting times, but I mean, because we're very focused in automation and emerging tech. There's always been a lot of noise and a lot of activity. So in a way, we've always been a bit outside of the sort of normal market in a way. But yeah, I guess going through those tough times and still doing quite well as you are, it just kind of goes to show that you've got a very viable business model. You've got there's probably a lot of opportunity out there for you to continue to grow and scale and deliver even more. And I think, touching on your point, like you say, when you are growing, for you to then take a step back and allow other people to do probably the things that you've been doing that you don't always necessarily need to be doing, so you can take a step back and focus on other things that are more important. That's the big step for a lot of businesses we work with, to be able to take that step and then have other people help you and do that sort of stuff, that's the first big step to kind of moving away. And it's sometimes the hardest step. It's not even getting started and hiring people and bringing people in. It's actually that step where you've got to, right, I'm going to take my hands off the wheel a little bit and then pass it over to someone else, and I'm going to focus on some other things and let everyone else do it. So, and it's always harder when when you start the company and it's your baby and you've seen it grow. So no, it's interesting to hear what you guys are doing. And I guess what the listeners, I think, really like to hear are two key things, really, both around successes and failures, because successes are great to shout about and people love to hear how people are doing and what you've done well and what your sort of biggest achievements are. But also on the flip side of that, what the biggest failure is and how you've learned from that, and how you kind of turn that around into an experience where you either don't do it again, or, like I say, you learn from it and kind of move on. So I think first of all, it'd be good to understand, for you, it can be in your personal life, it can be in business, but what would you say your biggest failure has been? And I know failure is a bit of a tough word, but and how did you sort of learn from it, and how did that kind of affect things?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think people say you shouldn't be afraid to fail. Sure, it's a nice, easy term, but it's never nice when you do it.
Yeah.
And I've had a few, that's for sure. One of them, which just instantly comes to mind, when I first started at K2, I was about a year in, I think, and I was given a particular project to go after, or to run and deliver. And I didn't trust my gut to start with, right? I looked at this thing, and your gut tells you literally, a turd is a turd, right?
Yeah.
And I looked at this thing and I thought, oof, no, this is not going to work. It was a big project replacing 5 different systems. It was already 6 weeks late. Nothing had been done.
Oh, wow.
It was a 3-month time period, which was never going to happen anyway. And I just thought, I'm new in, I'll make this happen.
Yeah.
So off I went. I gathered a smallish team around me, and sort of cracked on. And of course, it wasn't working. So what did I do? Decided, now I'll just work harder.
Yeah.
Right. So the 8-hour days became 10-hour days. The 10-hour days became 15-hour days, and the 15-hour days became 20-hour days. Literally, there was a team of 3 of us, and no one saw us. We were just hiding in a room for 3 months, trying to get this thing written. And after 3 months, I was broken, and so were my team. And I came out and I went down to the gentleman that ran the business and said, "Hey, I'm going to quit." And he went, "What? Why?" And so I explained it to him, and he said, "Hang on a minute." He said, "Look, lesson number 1, you have to ask for help early." And I always tell these to people now, is you ask for help early because then people can help you early.
Yeah.
You never put yourself into a situation where you're detrimenting your health through work, and you ask for help early, and then people can help you. He said, "Okay, don't do that. Go and take a month off, and then come back, and we'll see what you think." Which I went and did, and then I came back, and he sat me down. He said, "Okay, don't ever do that again. Off you go." And I joined a different part of the business. So for me, the thing there is, I said, trust your gut, but always ask for help early. Don't let things become too big a problem before you call in the troops, because by that time it's really hard. If you help early, you can
Yeah.
mitigate early.
Yeah. I think a lot of people have probably been in that situation where, there's something that they want to get done and they want to either prove to themselves or prove to someone else. And they think, and probably ignoring some of the warning signs as well at the start, and
Yeah,
thinking, no, I can deliver on this. I can do this. I can achieve this. And I've got what it takes. I believe in myself. And you sort of ignore some of the other things. You're a bit blindsided and just focused in on what you want to do. And then before you know it, you're down a sort of rabbit hole,
yeah,
and kind of looking back and should have really listened to myself, or picked up on those red flags. So I think a lot of people have probably been in very similar situations, and I think it's right. Asking for that help early before you get in too deep, and and it's too late at that stage. No, really, yeah, really interesting. And I think on the other side, something probably maybe to finish on a bit of a lighter note in terms of your biggest success to date, and how did you achieve it, what sort of steps you took, what that looks like. And we know that success looks very different to everyone else. If I was to ask one of my friends, it was probably his greatest success would probably be marrying his wife.
Yeah.
So I know there's probably a lot of different ones, but I mean, I guess in the sense of the business world and tech, and what you've sort of achieved throughout your career, maybe something along those lines, and what that looks like for you.
In the business world, Harrison, it's a really easy one for me. It's been co-founding Jaam, because I've been working in a business for 15 years, and to step out of that and set up your own thing, and to make that sort of break from working for a company that you've been in for many, many, many years, that you're comfortable in, pretty good at, can be a bit daunting, right? But I think the approach that we took at the time, was to say, okay, well, there were a few of us that wanted to do it. We decided we weren't going to do the single founder piece and take everything on our own shoulders. We decided that, okay, actually, we're going to get the core skill sets that we need to go and run this business, and we're going to invest. And we managed. It wasn't by skill. I think it was more by luck, I guess, that the four of us had worked together in a business for any ranging between 12 to 4 years, and we all got on brilliantly as friends as well, right? So we managed to set up a company with people that we'd worked with, so that there's no surprises there, that we're good friends with. So again, there's no surprises there. And of course, in a startup, you're on top of each other, as you all know, 24/7.
Yeah.
And that, I believe, is what's helped made it a success. A, being brave and going and doing it, and B, teaming up with people who you've trusted, not doing on your own, and people that you get on with, I think is very important. And then laying the ground foundations as you go, right at the beginning. What is it that you were looking to achieve over the next 1, 3, 5, 10 years? Of course, it will change, but what are we looking to? What does everybody want out of this thing? Let's agree that up front. Make sure that we're all heading in with our eyes open, defining the roles as quickly as possible, and then recognizing you're going to argue, but you're all arguing for the right reason, because you want the success of this business, and you don't ever hold those arguments on through to the next day. So I think that's basically the biggest success, and how we've gone about doing it today.
Good. Yeah. And you're right, it's no small feat. Like you say, when you're working for a company, you're doing well. You've got your guaranteed income, you got your salary, you're pretty comfortable. Putting yourself out there and starting a brand new business from scratch, like you say, it's not on your own. You've got some people around you, which provide you with a bit more comfort. You're all in the sort of same boat, but it's not an easy thing to do. And clearly you guys have done a great job so far, and through very turbulent times. So what's to say, it's should be a bit more, I wouldn't say smooth sailing, but less rocky, I guess, compared to probably the first couple of years. It's always a bit crazy anyway, but no,
I think more organized is probably the right term.
I tend to think that sometimes as well, and then there are days where I think, no, there's absolutely no organization at all. I don't know what I was thinking. And then there are some days where I'm fully in control and I know what's going on. But no, that's really really good to to understand a bit more about you, about your background. I think the listeners will enjoy it a lot. I think just want to say thank you for your time, and just spending some, we've gone a little bit longer than we expected, but I think it was always the plan. It wasn't ever going to be a 5-minute chat. But yeah, thank you so much for for sharing everything with us. I'm going to put all your contact details in so people know where to reach you and how to get hold of you and to contact you if they want a conversation. I'll put all of that in so you've got all of that. And then, yeah, if there's anything else you want to say, just, feel free.
Hey, thanks, Harrison. I've really enjoyed the chat. It's lovely to get to know you a little bit more as well. I mean, I think probably a little bit of a soundbite. I don't know, but for people out there, Richard Branson, I think he said, if somebody gives you a big opportunity, take it and then figure it out. I think that's sound advice.
Yeah.